G'day everyone, Rangadad here. Not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the markets. This week is a bit of a make or break week. There's lots of stats out there that suggest that we should have found a bottom. Sentiment's in the toilet. One of the lowest bull reads we've seen for ages on the, I don't remember who does that one. I think it might be a Moody's sentiment or something. But the other thing is we've got a fair bit of economic data coming out for both Japan, a bit of German, Eurozone stuff, but also the US. So JOLTS job openings, core CPI, the core PPI as well, unemployment claims, British GDP month on month, and then the consumer sentiment and inflation expectations for the US. So I think core PPI is probably going to be the one that'll really move the market. But at this stage, there should be a bounce still, but based on everything I'm seeing, could be a bounce. Interestingly, we are quite a bit below the average mining cost now. Again, we can stay that way for quite some time, especially in a bear market. The thing with this is how low are we going to go? Because typically the miners hold on to their Bitcoin as much as possible in these kind of times, and they're typically selling while their mining costs are below the price. So just an interesting stat. Wouldn't really suggest using this to make a decision on anything, but we can stay below for quite a period of time. Now, sentiment, dumb money had an uptick and smart money pulled back a little bit. This is an interesting one because smart money is reasonably high here, and it would make sense for them to start selling off their positions that they've been loading up on. So another good signal for a little bit of a pump. As I said the other day, this is a little concerning that we've had, it looks like a bit more distribution across the top here on IBIT. I have a funny feeling that when we open today, and the pre-market opens, I don't know, 4 hours or something, that I'd be surprised if we didn't get actually a bit of a buy come through on IBIT. Coinbase, again, a little bit of distribution potential, but it never really looked like dropping too hard with the market the other day. This was the biggest thing for me is there was a fairly large 16th largest trade right at the bottom on the 2x long Coinbase on Friday. So these guys can take a little bit of drawdown. Oh, they can take a lot of drawdown. Their position based rather than really margin based traders, leverage based traders. Sorry. So this to me is a bit of a bullish signal. Mara again hasn't really dropped at all. XLP got a decent trade coming through on it as well. So consumer staples I still expect to have a bit more in it yet, but I think you'll see this just grind as money flows out of other sectors, it'll flow into XLP, getting ready for the next move down. Yeah, XLY is getting a bit of interest here as well. So, and pretty decent across the technology sector, like some decent trades along the bottom here. I think they are accumulation. We'll have to wait and see. And financials, that's going to be the story of the next month or so, I think. Financials has got it's still quite high compared to a lot of the others. It was still running to the upside when everything else was pulling back. Looks like it might be financials' turn to pull back hard. Wait and see what happens, but yeah, that's kind of the way I'm looking at the dark pools at the moment. Pretty decent red through the bottoms here. Not quite as much as through here, but decent sign of potential bottom. We are at a very critical level though, so good CBD spot volume still. As I mentioned the other day, like we haven't had a general grind up on CBD for ages on spot. That to me suggests there is quite a lot of spot interest in buying Bitcoin at the moment. Even though the ETFs have sort of had some net outflows, someone's buying into it at these levels. Futures aren't going with it. So a lot of the futures traders are negative on it, which we'll see who wins. But in general, this is still a good sign. Yeah, I think there's a pump in this yet. I did point out in the Discord there was a fair bit of liquidity around 82,500. So and it looks like it's come down to pick that up. This stage, not a bad little bottoming pattern we got going on, but again, 1 foot out the door. This concerns me a little that we've had a fair chunk of liquidity come into the charts at the moment, but we do have a fair bit above as well. So that's the 48 hour that symbol. Yes, there's quite a bit more above at the moment. Man, why that wasn't logged in. So yeah, it looks like we've swept most of it from the last week. 2 week. Yeah, so it's not a hell of a lot below. Like we'll come back into this and into these levels here. There's a lot around the 75 down to 70k, but it's going to be once we confirm an actual bear market. At the moment, we still haven't confirmed that for me. So yeah, I'm expecting a target up around at least 95, potentially 96. I said the other day that we may hit 99k again before we actually hit 70k. I still think that's the case. Bitcoin it's just been smashed over the last couple of weeks, so the last month. Typically, you'll get some sort of dead cat bounce at least. So this is the concerning bit. Once you zoom out to the 1 month, there's a lot down at that level. So again, 1 foot out the door, but at this point here, like maybe a little bit lower before CME opens. So back into 80K. But that's going to cause a gap down on CME. So we are overextended to the downside now on the linear regression channel. The MACD's switching direction, one that I've got anyway. Obviously still downtrending. The other thing is we have broken down from this little wedge that was forming. That, depending on how you measure these, call it from there to there, that would look pretty nasty down at 73. A lot of people will be measuring that out too, so that could actually measure out to lower than that as well. Typically, you take it off the start of the wedge. That'd be down to 69. 69,900. Well, thereabouts. That, to me, would actually that would confirm we're in a bear market and probably still get bounces back up into this sort of level. But that bounce will be met with some significant resistance, and yeah, we'll see what happens over the next year or so. Find a bottom. Whoa. But not dead yet. Quite often see fake outs of wedges in particular, pennants. So just be aware of that. Could be a liquidity hunt. See, yeah, I just want to do this on the 1 hour. See where we're at linear regression channel wise. Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah, so that was the other reason I mentioned the 82.5 in the Discord was there was the middle of this channel as well, which has been pretty reasonable spot for turnarounds, or at least resistance on the way through. Oh, my throat is croaky this morning. Sorry about that. So yeah, this pretty good channel for a bounce, pretty good region for a bounce. Sort of 2 standard deviations out on linear regression. Yeah, so looking okay there. So a bit more confidence in the bounce here from total versus stable coins. You can see here the last 3 hours have been green, whereas last 3 hours on just Bitcoin itself on Bybit has actually been green, red, well, red, green, red. Generally grinding up, but it's just an interesting comparison there. That's why I like to really look at this total versus stables for the best kind of indication of what's happening. So yeah, sweep of these lows, momentum's back to the upside. BBWP is quite high, but it's looking okay. This green line here, that is your bull market support. We need to break back above that, preferably before the daily candle closes, but it's probably not going to be that today, and we didn't necessarily do that over here either. Oh yeah, we did actually. Yeah, they actually snuck down just after the daily candle, caused that wick on the daily. So if we actually go to the daily, last time it wicked through it, closed above. This time, I mean, on the daily, that that's looking pretty nasty. We could still get a pump here and close above. I'm not super concerned about it if we don't, because I think the next daily candle will close above it. It'll just be a fake out. Don't. Yeah, as long as it closes above it pretty soon, then we should be okay. But as you can see, that is a very important trend line for us. It's held up this whole bull run for now, and typically break below this, we'll see the start of a bear market. It's the last two bear markets been started by a similar break. So break and confirm. So you want to retest this level and bounce away. So yeah, that's where it's sitting at. It's not looking great momentum wise on the daily. BBWP is increasing. That could spell pretty bad downside move, but yeah, just after being smashed for so long to the downside, it would make sense for this to bounce, at least dead cat bounce again. Don't think we'll hit this line, at least not that area. We're not going to rip up there in a couple of days. Let's just see what this one was. 5 days, 25% move. Let's see if we get a little mini bull pump. Yeah. Talking probably more like this area here, which will look pretty ordinary, but that's if we got a pump that was equivalent to this over 5 days. May have measured that wrong, but anyway, this here is probably the key one for me. If we get resistance there, then it'll probably be around the 99k mark or less. Bitcoin's got a lot of work to do. Question is, can it do it? This looks a little nasty too. I'd prefer to see the daily Bitcoin close back above sort of this middle of this channel. Interesting that we've kind of recovered on the total versus stable coins. We've pretty well recovered the wick in here. Haven't swept the lows of it, which is a little concerning, but can actually come into this vector candle wick in here on Bybit. So yeah, momentum has shifted to the downside too. So we need this to turn around basically today. It's just a matter of at the moment we're due to open with a pretty big gap to the downside. 80k is an interesting one for me too. I was actually looking at that before, thinking we could actually hit 80k and bounce still. That's basically where the 200 EMA on the daily is for CME. Yeah, Bitcoin's got a lot of work to do. It's looking nasty, but at the same time, so is the S&P 500, and I'm reasonably confident that's going to bounce unless we haven't heard any like major bad news come out. ETH sort of retested this week again. What was the low on that? Low just below 2,000 again. Still think vector candle recovery is going to be a thing here. I think ETH could still actually run reasonably well. 97, so this is a nasty looking close on Litecoin as well, but leaving a lot of liquidity to the upside here. Sol, kind of, again, would have liked to have seen Sol a little bit lower. So maybe we get another day down before we get the bounce. But shit, 2 daily closes below that bull market support line on total versus stables would not be looking great. XRP, again, it kind of looks like it wants to pick up this trend line again. Recovered a little bit of this vector wick here. She's looking pretty nasty across a lot of these things. Hype. Hype actually looks set for potential bounce here, but Tron. Staying above his 50 EMA on the daily, which is horrendous. Not looking great. This thing has traded completely differently to Bitcoin. Very differently. Bit of a bloodbath across the board, especially AI is getting hammered. AI 16Z here. Goats get hammered. Damn, I wish I had a short of that. Nice. Anyway, grass. You only got any AI coins. This one looks like the one that's actually got a little bit of support in it. Most of them look like that. Lingo and shrapnel. Lingo's holding on here. Sorry, super. Yeah. Super did break that downward trend that it had. Not looking great though. Shrapnel bites. All the gaming coins, they look flat. Like it looks like we're at the point where people just don't want to dump their stock anymore or their coins anymore because they're like, well, they're worth nothing. I might as well hold on to them. That typically marks a pretty decent low when that happens. Like around here, bites. That was before the run up in the bull market. Could be a very long, very dark bear market for a lot of these alts, though. If we were to go full bear from here, that would not be pleasant for a lot of the holders and even the project teams in a lot of these coins. A lot of them get paid in the coins of the project. They used to anyway. So yeah, it's looking like a bit of a bloodbath, which is kind of when you want to be buying. Not necessarily suggesting buy altcoins because they're just and not looking great, but majors are actually looking okay. So Q's closed above the retest that trend line, closed above the 200 EMA. Same on Nasdaq. Mini futures closed below the 200, but yeah, okay with that. Equal weight. Well, excuse me. Equal weight closed below the 200 EMA as well, which is probably a little more concerning. What we don't want to see is a rejection off this trend line on equal weight. You want to see recovery of that trend line pretty quickly. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. I still like that as a target there. S&P 500, good bounce off 200 EMA. a lot of people will say, that's great. You expect that, but it's still going to go down. We'll see. Yeah. Just looking at what a market crash could do. This is pretty much the COVID lows, and to wipe out at least all the money that was generated during COVID and that's been pumped into these markets, that wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if we go into a full recession, depression kind of scenario. It's going to happen over a while. Like I actually think it probably would take at least 2 years to find that low, or around 2 years to find that low. There's going to be lots of swings in between, as we typically do in big drops, like high to low on what's me do on the GFC. That was 57%, and it happened over a year. .com bust. Let's call it there. Below, I think, one of these. Let's call it there. 524 bars, 50% down. These are busts, but they're not, depressionary busts. That's the issue that I'm pointing at. Whereas here, down, it actually happened pretty freaking quickly. That, Jesus Christ, that would have been insane. 84% down, not very long. 25 days. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Even 100 days to get out of it. Don't think that's happening. But, an 80% drop isn't necessarily off the cards. 134 days to find the bottom. Just interesting to know what we could potentially expect. So at the moment, we're sitting roughly here. 1960s bear market. That was the first drop. We've basically just done the first drop. And we rallied up, nearly hit the all-time high again. About 2% off it. And then overall, 166 bars before we found the bottom. We just haven't got any triggers yet. That's the weird thing at the moment. But geez, this is similar. I think it's a similar scenario. Like, that's almost like the COVID drop. I think the lizard's back in the office. Anyway, so we had a fairly decent trend line through here. We hit, bounced off, couldn't hold it the second time. You could potentially draw it through there, actually. Just a similar sort of run up with drops. It looks very similar to me, what we had going on there. Note that we did break that 200 EMA there off a smaller percentage drop though. Only 5% to break that. But we did eventually get back above it, just to fail it. And that, to me, makes a lot of sense that would be what happens in this market at the moment, or something that rhymes quite a bit with that. All right, let's go. I still think this is a good buy area for S&P 500. And we could actually base around here for a while as well. Like, I'm not necessarily expecting a V-shaped sort of recovery, but at the same time, retail is so negative at the moment. There's so many puts in the system. It would make sense to actually bounce pretty hard from here. And we're still not seeing any data that's really like super negative. It's all pointing towards a recession coming, but still not too bad. Actually, I think it's not even. You sound like a bit bugger. Yeah. Yeah. So equal weight. Uh, it looks like a decent spot for a bounce on equal weight as well. So yeah, momentum switched to the upside a little bit. Still in bearish control zone, but looks like a decent level. IWM again, it's looking pretty beat down. May find a little bit more of a pullback, but there's some massive trades come through on IWM, dark pool trades. Go and watch the FX Evolution video from the weekend. Does a good job of summarizing that. So the issue is bounces on this are going to run into some resistance against these moving averages. So, could take a while to grind up. But yeah, and they can get more of a drawdown. They don't have to go straight up straight away, but you're literally talking about the top 3 trades of all time came through on IWM at the bottom here. And that's a pretty important data point, I think. XLI, be interesting to see if it breaks out and confirms above that channel. That could be a nice little run on XLI. XLY, XLP. It's still downside postured, so it's kind of a negative sign for markets. XLP SPY, that's actually an interesting topping tail kind of candle there. So lots of downward pressure at that point. We do need this to come down for us to bounce on markets in general. And for it to be a decent bounce, we want it to close below this trend line. The next time we break it, it will probably be permanent. Well, semi-permanent for the next 10 years or so. Equal weight XLY XLP, so it found the 200 moving average and got some support there as well. Equal weight XLP versus SPY, it did break above that channel. That's again concerning, but if we have another day or two where it comes back within that or below that trend line, then again that would support a bounce narrative. Equal weight XLY, the consumer staples got a pretty decent move up. But yeah, so did consumer discretionary. So again, a little bit down into these wicks to just retest the 200 EMA again over the first day or two of trade. Wouldn't surprise, but similar to what Bitcoin's doing, like a sweep of the lows and then a move up wouldn't be out of the question. Regional banks and the financial sector, though, I think they may come down a little bit more. They're just kind of in no man's land at the moment. I'd like to see them come down a bit more just to have a run up into the 50 and the 200 EMA. See what happens there. But at this stage, the financial sector is finally showing some signs of cracking, and that is a recessionary signal. It's just timing of that is the key. Home construction, pull back a little off this trend line. It's hopefully it's just building some momentum to get through it. Home builders still struggling as well, so I want to see home builders back above this trend line. Nice big move up and basically head and shoulders would be interesting. Semis needs to reclaim this area, I think. But yeah, I am thinking this is a Wyckoff distribution through here. DJI Gold, little bounce. Right? This one, sorry.
Like, not why does like pause?
This one.
Yeah.
Oh, that just tells me news.
Oh.
Okay. So DJI Gold and DJT Gold are still down. They've still broken key levels, but again, you would expect a bounce soon. And a bounce on them and rejection off key levels is probably a sign that we've got recession on the cards. VIX is pulling back a bit too. Skew had a little bounce too. So on Friday, the skew did bounce from a decent level, like similar sort of support level there. VIX 1 day pull back down as well, which does suggest upside. It's going to be choppy, but still expecting upside. TLT pull back. High yield jump. This will be interesting. If we get back above this trend line, that's what we want. LQD. This concerns me a little bit that it's coming down, but again, there's just a bit of vector candle recovery it could do. So that is a negative sign at the moment, but still not super concerned about that given everything else. Yields might even just coil here for a little bit, but typically one of the things Trump's trying to do is bring yields down without having to really get the Fed involved. Actually, Coin Bureau did a really good video on what they think Trump's master plan is, and I think they nailed that. Wait and see, but wait and see whether he can pull it off too. Gold still flat. Most of these haven't really changed since my last video because the last video was a. This is interesting though. Oil rejection off the Bay Area low. Yeah, oil looks potentially set to break these levels, and Trump's going to be pushing for that pretty hard with the Saudis, I'd say. Good level for a bounce for Dixie too, so just be mindful of that. Dixie goes up, we could struggle. Could be a real grind up. Japanese yen still got some strength. I'll look at that. Euro, it hit pretty well the target, vector candle recovery. Let's see what happens now. But I think Euro and the yen, well, Euro in particular, and the UK dollar was Great Britain down. They could potentially pull back because I think there's a rotation out of the DAX. So it's potentially a rotation out of the DAX and back into the US market. DAX, Chinese market, UK 100, they've all had a decent run up while the US market's been pulling back. I have a funny feeling that that's actually a rotation that's going on at the moment globally. All right. And yeah, Japanese market looks like bouncing potentially. And yeah, so does the US market. While the DAX in the UK 100 look like they're potentially going to pull back. Global liquidity is one to watch again. It's still sort of teetering on nasty levels. Money supply actually looks like it might be rolling over a little bit. The M2 that could lead to some downside potentially, but I don't think there's a super strong relationship there. Bitcoin percentage of stocks above the 50-day moving average bounced a little. Apple, all these areas. I did them on my Saturday US Friday sessions video. Ford, decent run. ASX 200, decent candle there for a bounce. And yeah, it's recovered the majority of this vector candle here. So upside seems reasonably likely, even though it doesn't look like it based on this. BTC's market cap is ordinary. ETH versus BTC. Marsh, can you stop that, please?
Yeah, well, I wanted.
Very loud. Can you do it over there?
Yeah, what do you guys like?
That's just that's the computer that I'm working.
We need like we need to turn the computer off. That's
ETH versus BTC longs, they actually had a bit of a sell-off the other day. It's not really showing that though, so that's weird because I was watching this because ETH BTC actually had a pump yesterday, and some of these guys started selling their positions, so it's actually not showing it as a wick to the downside, which is weird. Some funny reporting going on maybe of this particular pair, Bitfinex, but you know there was a drop. Oh, maybe I was looking at it on the hourly. Yeah, I might have been on the hourly. But yeah, they're getting excited. These first BTC guys are still buying the dip. Let's see if it keeps dipping for them or not. Let's get a BTC longs. So these guys did take some profit as well. Now they're ramping up again. That's a good sign. Still some interest there. Okay, so back into Ethereum. Oops. Yeah. I mean, could we get a little bit more down before we go up? Yes. Could we just flush completely to nothing? Yes. Both equally possible. Just looking at this on the hourly, that's a pretty strong bottoming signal there. Good momentum signal. It would make a lot of sense for this to be a bottom. Same time, you could also put in an argument for a rejection off this, and then we come back down to that 78-ish again, back down to these levels. If not further, to wick below. I think there's too many people looking at that level at the moment with shorts, and the data isn't really suggesting that that's where it needs to go. Of course, I could be completely wrong. That's a decent level. So lots of vector candles above to recover. Just need to break through this top channel again. It's going to be the tricky bit. And then whether we can get through this particular one as well. As I said, I think if we're bouncing from here, there's enough interest. And if the US stock market starts to wipe everyone out to the upside as well, then Bitcoin should follow. All right, that's about it, I think, for that. But yeah, obviously watch out for this later on. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, sorry, liquidation map is very much heavy to the upside, so there's a lot of liquidations to the upside. At least up into 87k. But like 7-day, that looks mental. 30-day looks even more mental. Like, yeah, that's looking pretty mental for me. Marshy, what are you doing? There was what was I looking at the other day? Crap, distracted me. Think about it. We're still in fear. We're not really in extreme fear at the moment, but oh, freaking hell. The options. I don't remember if I saved this somewhere. Oh, it is on CoinGlass. I couldn't find it. There we go. So today options expiry, max pain's around 86k. So that would lend itself to a bounce for that as well. But then tomorrow or the day after, we sort of do come back a little bit. That can change obviously as options change. But yeah, that's an interesting level, 84k. And then after that, we actually get a bounce and a lot more volume in these options. So these are the ones to probably pay attention to. So 88k on the 14th. And then this is a big one here, 86k max pain at the moment on the 28th of March. So that's an interesting level. Again, that could change, but it's interesting we have a bit of a bump into Christmas according to this. I'm expecting 100k by Christmas. Anyway, I wouldn't pay too much attention to that. These near term ones are interesting. Though. Okay. All right. That'll do for me for now. Bitcoin, yeah. So again, still expecting some sort of bounce here and a decent sort of bounce on the weekly. Just not like this is looks like vector candle recovery on the weekly. It's about to close in 3 hours. Nasty looking weekly chart though, hey. All right.